Hello folks, and welcome into day 5 of your Race to World First daily recap. My name is Kexman and I am here to walk you through all of the talking points and big moments of the race, so be sure to follow me so you don't miss out on any of the recaps. Before we get into what day 5 brought us, let's take a look at the leaderboard from our friends over at Raider.io. Be sure to head over to raider.io/RWF for a live look. This leaderboard is accurate as of 5:20 PM BST. In first place we have Liquid, in second place Echo, Method are third, Hot Pot Hero in fourth, Instant Dollars in fifth, Zbox sixth, End Myth in seventh, Fat Shark Yes, just killing the boss as I record this, are in 8th, JTH are in 9th, and in 10th we have Honestly. Day 5 was set to be an incredible 24 hours, full of action, and it certainly didn't disappoint. Nexus-Princess Ky'veza was continuing to block the path of Liquid, Echo, Method, and Hot Pot Hero, even with the nerfs that we saw coming the previous day. It was Liquid that made the first real big progression, right at the start of their day, getting Ky'veza down to 14.65%, and then improving on that almost immediately with an 11.64% pull. Chef Heidi must have been creating some incredible food, as their breakfast buff carried over into a sub 10% pull at 8.29%. As Liquid were giving Ky'veza the sauce, Echo, Method and Hot Pot Hero were pushing as hard as they could to catch up, with Echo recording a new best of 20.05% before calling it. Meanwhile, Method were also catching up, with a best pull of 28% before bedtime, making great progression in comparison to their pull count. Liquid continued on into the evening on Ky'veza, but a small cloud was placed over their current progression with an accusation of exploiting. It was an accusation against Fired Up, one of the mages in Liquid, that he was abusing a bug that was featured in the game with the Spell Slinger hero talent. The capstone talent is supposed to explode at 8 stacks, however, if you don't actively target the mob, it can stack much higher. With screenshots showing stacks of 250, and the dot doing insane amounts of damage for Fired Up, it certainly seems as though some focus macro shenanigans were potentially in play. In the grand scheme of the race, however, it didn't really change too much for Liquid, who continued to push hard on the Princess, Fired Up now back to Sun Fury hero talents, and they consistently hit sub 20% pulls for a large period of time. With pull number 200 in sight, Liquid continued their march to World First with a 5.68% attempt, their closest to a kill so far. One buff that all of the guilds had yet to use were their Vantus runes, which give a huge buff to versatility when facing a particular boss, and we were wondering when we'd see our first use of them. Liquid happily obliged us, and full sent Vantus on their team, yet also split for heroics to grab some extra pieces of gear and drop a tank. Team compositions have been a part of the Race to World First since the dawn of time, but the one-tank strategy that Liquid came back to Ky'veza with was completely unexpected, yet made sense considering the sheer damage check on the boss. It did require some reprogression for the team, learning the cadence of the fight in a slightly different sense. Not only that, but it means that the team has to play perfectly, as battle res has become a much more important commodity due to the tank debuff killing them during every phase. With the pull count continuing to rise, even surpassing the famous pull count of Anduin in Sepulchre during the final race of Shadowlands, Liquid knew that a kill would come soon. The one-tank strategy finally paid off, with a huge 3.25% pull and hitting the Harden Rage. That proved to be the final piece of progression for them, as they called the raid not too soon after, with a pull count of 263. Back in the EU, both Echo and Method woke up, and upon seeing the one-tank strategy, it was inevitable that it would be adapted. Method were the last of the big three to adapt this strategy, but still managed to claim a 19.44% best, then followed that up with a 17.2% with 2 tanks, surpassing Echo into second place. They made the switch after lunch break and after some small splits to help gear up their DPS that was brought in. They interestingly enough decided to go with a Brewmaster Monk over the Bear Druid that both Echo and Liquid were using, instead utilising Feral Druid as their mandatory druid for Mark of the Wild. This proved to be very effective, to the point where we saw Echo also make the switch to Monk, but opting for an enhancement shaman. The low progression wipes continued with a 14.71% wipe, with many players from Method dead. However, it wasn't just the big three progressing on Nexus-Princess, with both Hot Pot Hero and the latest killers of Brood Twister Overnax, Instant Dollars, Zbox, End Myth, and JTH coming into the fray. Hot Pot Heroes continue to show just how skilled they were, catching up very quickly in progress to Liquid, Echo, and Method. Then Echo took it upon themselves to break through the 10% barrier with an 8.74% wipe before dinner. As you can see on the graph here from Raider.io, so many guilds are currently working on the Nexus-Princess, with it looking like we're going to be seeing some huge pull counts coming in from many guilds before we see a top 10 for this boss. This race is continuing to surpass everyone's expectations, with some huge bosses creating walls for so many guilds, and we still have 2 more left to go. With NA guilds now just waking up, will we even be seeing Queen Ansarek before the reset? Only time will tell, so be sure not to miss out on any of your Race to World First daily recaps.